Two straight facts. I'm joined by the man like Sav, big Spurs fan. Welcome back to the terrace, my friend. How are you?
Yeah, really well, thank you. Really well. Feel like I might be doing better than some football fans out there this season. Yeah, good start. So I'm really, really happy, and thanks for having me back.
It's all right. I don't know who you're talking about when you say that, but fair play. And there's loads to jump into today.
Yeah,
we will be touching on Jurgen Klopp that has now publicly demanded the replay against Tottenham. We'll be looking back at Arsenal in the Champions League last night and looking ahead to their massive game with Man City. We are, of course, going to talk about your Tottenham team today. How good are they? How far will they go this season? I really want to kind of gauge your views on that.
Yeah.
We will be touching on Man United as well. Viewers, though, do us a favor and smash the like button. Please subscribe to the Football Terrace as well. Very, very important that you get that done. And I wanted to start really with maybe one of the biggest talking points of the day, which is that Man United lost 6 defeat in 10 games. There's a lot of United fans online today, understandably calling for the manager's head, calling for him to be sacked, calling him to be removed. Players like Bruno and Rashford, again, rightfully being heavily criticised for lackluster performances. Before we get into the sacking side of things, which does feel like it's becoming ever more a pressing matter, what do you think is wrong with Man United? Why 6 defeats in 10 games for a team that have spent 200 million this summer and who won 73% of their matches last season? Why has it gone so horribly wrong this time around?
I think that whatever Man United do, and again, listen, from an outsider's point of view, whatever I see Man United do, it always seems to be a plaster over surgery. And I feel that this is bigger than a manager. I feel this is bigger than a squad. Your club is just one of the teams at the top that have no direction. So you can go out and buy a few players, get a manager in who's going to get a bounce, have a decent season like you had last year for Man United. Let's be fair, it's not a great season because you are Man United. You're expected to challenge for titles, etc. But I don't know if there's a plan. Like I watch United play. I don't see any plan on the pitch. I look at the types of players you buy, and it feels like it's very much in the moment. It doesn't feel like it's part of a longer term strategy. It doesn't feel like you're ever building for the future. I'm not saying any of them, obviously people like Højlund, but it just feels very much like we're papering over cracks with Man United, right? It's Amrabat's coming on loan and Casemiro at his age came in and Varane at the end of his career. And I don't know. I just feel like you need a proper director of football with a proper scouting network and that will actually go out and buy players that they can mould and grow and do what Klopp did at Liverpool, what Pep Guardiola's done at City, what Arteta to a lesser degree has done at Arsenal. But it's not right. And this is not the Man United I grew up knowing. This isn't the Man United I knew. There was always a plan. So for me, you can sack the manager. And I do think, there's a great shout for him to be sacked, Terry. There is. Of course there is. You can't lose 6 of your opening 10 games at Man United. But if you just sack the manager and nothing else changes, you're literally jumping out of the frying pan into the fire. You're literally, do you know what I mean? You're doing it again. You need a director of football to come in with this on the same page as the manager and go, right, what's our next 4 to 5 windows look like? Not who are we going to plug a gap with now?
Mate, I agree with so much of that. And I want to start by saying the manager deserves to be criticised for issues with his team. For instance, starting Bruno and Rashford when they're both playing poorly. He's on the manager and he should be criticised, no doubt. I think Amrabat's very quickly got found out as a central midfielder playing at left back. First game got away with it, got exposed a little bit against Palace at the weekend. Last night, caught out for both goals. And I don't really blame the player because that's not his position, but the manager hasn't recognised this. So there's definite criticism there. Equally, you criticise players, Onana's mistakes, Rashford's awful performances as of late, Bruno's unimpactful performances. That all needs to be criticised.
Yeah.
But what you've said there, I made a note of it, buying for the moment. This has been Man United's problem for the last 10 years. We're always buying for the moment because we never have a clear plan as a football club. And I still don't believe that the way Ten Hag is, we know that the way Ten Hag's trying to build isn't in conjunction with a football club. And we learned this in the summer because all the leaks have come out that the recruitment team and Ten Hag are not agreeing on the types of player. And the players are not the same profile, but different names. They're completely different types of football players. The fact that the club wanted us to go and buy Pau Torres and he wanted Lisandro Martinez, they're not the same type of central defender. I don't think that Rabiot and Casemiro are the same type of midfield players, as an example. He wanted Amrabat this summer. They wanted Rabiot. Again, very different profile of player. They play very differently. So you're absolutely right. And this is where Man United fans, again, criticize the manager. No issue with it. Again, go for the players.
Yep.
I think where my frustration lies is that we are so, as fans, we've become so one-dimensional with our football club. Everything is about low-hanging fruit. What's a quick win? A quick win would be, let's get rid of De Gea and Maguire. Remember, that was going to fix us. Getting rid of Pogba, that will fix us. Kicking Sancho out the squad, that will fix us. And again, it's different silos of fans that say this. Mentioned Pogba already. We had it with Fellaini, Rooney being over the hill, cleverly, Welbeck not being good enough. You know, Chicharito's not a footballer, he's too much. 10 years been going on.
Yeah.
Every time, the biggest Ten Hag outers right now that everybody's saying to me, bruv, you need to go and watch their content. They're so right. They've been calling this for weeks. These were the same people, I believe, who said that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's squad with a half-decent football coach, and they included Ten Hag in this, would walk or win, depending on the content creator, the Premier League with that squad. The problem that I have is we are, even in our analysis of removing somebody or dropping a player, we are overzealous and over-exaggerate how big or how long-term that improvement is going to be. Sticking with Ten Hag is trying to develop a style of play here. We're trying to play more openly. We're trying to play more expansively. Where I think he's gone wrong, and we've got a guy on our show, I don't have to plagiarize, Sunshine, that's mentioned this, and I think he's called it absolutely right. With changing the goalkeeper, trying to improve the defense a little bit, trying to improve the midfield a little bit, trying to improve the attack a little bit, we've left ourselves weak still in every area, where what he maybe should have done is remained a bit more pragmatic like last season and gone, do you know what? The budget this year, we're improving the front line and we're going to add 25, 30 more goals to this team. And then next summer, maybe you say, right, now we're going to spend that next £200 million on a goalie and centre-backs. And you're doing section by section rather than trying to strengthen a little bit of every area at once. And for me, that's probably the best piece of analysis that I have heard so far that explains why we've bought some decent players, we've changed our style of football, and there's still holes in this team. I'm hearing people say that Casemiro and Varane don't want to run because they're only here for a paycheck. Maybe. I'm not quite buying that as an example. I'm even hearing people say, kind of defending the manager, he's being forced into playing Bruno and Rashford. I don't necessarily think so. I actually wouldn't mind Rashford being dropped. The big question is, who medium to long term could play in 10 games and maybe deliver more than Rashford's capable of? I don't think there's anyone. And this is the issue that we have, is that because we didn't strengthen one area, and I got this wrong, I thought we did it well in the summer. My feeling in the summer was, I think we've done a good job. Hindsight's lucrative. That's our mistakes. I have a feeling the manager is heading towards the sack, though. I'm not advocating for the sack right now. When I calm down after games, I'm not advocating for it. I think he's going to do it. And although in the short term, we might get a new manager come in, we get a bounce and the football looks nicer, all the players get a clean slate, all the negative fans online become positive for a while and it feels good, I just get a feeling that if we don't address the root cause issues that you've mentioned, that I brought up, in 18 months, with me and you are back here on this show talking about the exact same thing. And that's my biggest fear in this. It isn't that we're playing badly. It's that we're playing badly, but I feel sacking the manager, selling a few of the players we dislike, will have absolutely zero impact on improving us. Why? Because that's been our pattern for a decade. And I'm genuinely fearful of it, of doing an action like that and there being zero improvement at the end of it, genuinely.
Look, you're spot on. You're spot on. Look, I mean, the problem is, I think you need so much to happen, and it's like, what happens first? I think you do need someone to come in and bring a style of play that is going to pacify the United fans at the moment. I'll be honest. Listen, I can't be contradictory. I've sat on with rants. I've sat on with Saeed, you know, big Man United fans with big channels, and sat there and said, I don't know what man you are, Terry. Like, I watch Man United. I don't know what you're trying to be. I don't know what he's doing. The football doesn't seem to be evolving each week. And the fact that the guy's been here for, 18 months now, just under 18 months. What I'm seeing from Man U now is what I would expect with a manager coming in, picking up someone else's squad and right at the beginning of their tenure. I don't expect this from a manager like Ten Hag 18 months into his Man United career, when he's got a lot of players that apparently he's wanted. I don't know the ins and outs of that. I'm not a United fan, but you're looking at some big signings, excuse me, in key areas. You've replaced your number one goalkeeper. You've replaced Lissandro has gone in instead of whoever else was playing with Varane at the back. He's gone and bought Amrabat, Casemiro, Mount. He's got a new midfield three in there. Eriksen, 4 of them. He's got Anthony as a right-sided forward. He's got Højlund as his striker. This is now overwhelmingly his team, his tactics. I think that I don't know what it will do right now, sacking him. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but I'm not sure what it'll do right now. You've got to get that director of football. You've got to get somebody in that is going to acknowledge that it's not just about going and slapping down the most amount of money on 65 million on Mount, 50 million, whatever on Onana, but actually going out and scouting players for a manager's philosophy. And I just feel you're missing that completely. And the worst thing I can say about Man U right now, and I'm not having I'm in no position. My team
I can
don't win
take
anything,
it.
right?
I get it.
But my team don't win anything. I can't sit here and say, but his rival fans, though, used to look at Man United and we revered Man United. People would talk about going to Old Trafford, and it was like, right, well, let's write that off. Let's write that off. No one's getting 3 points. No one's getting a point at Old Trafford. You didn't play well all the time, but you'd win. Yet there was this aura around your stadium. There was this aura around when you went to away grounds. Now I look at Man U, and 2 weeks ago when you lost to Brighton, people were talking about what's the biggest shock of the week, and people were going, "Oh, I think Brighton could win." I said, I don't think it's a shock.
It's not a shock. It's not a shock.
And how has it got to the point where Brighton, who 4.5, 5 years ago, whatever, were in the Championship, have now implemented such a good philosophy that they're doing this, and this. And Man United, one of the biggest clubs in world football, seem to be doing this, seem to be going further and further down. So something's not right at the top. It's not right throughout the infrastructure of the club. All the issues you've got with players, like all this stuff with Jadon Sancho. You've had it with Rashford being late for training or whatever, the Anthony stuff, all the Ronaldo nonsense last year, Harry Maguire. It just all seems like everything is not well at Man United. And the odd win seems to pacify the fans that then come out and go, "Oh my God, it's brilliant again. Look, it's brilliant." And then you lose to Galatasaray and it's terrible again.
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
You know what's interesting? Mate, listen, there's a lot of there what you've said that I think's spot on. When you said there about the manager having his own players, I agree. Yes, we've got no left back fit at the club. Yeah, I don't think Lindelof is someone that he looks at long term. Everybody else though in that team last night is what I would consider is a Ten Hag player. He's either given them new deals, made them captain, or brought them to the football club. And it's for him to get it right. And in the last 3 matches, I will say that we have tried to play a brand of football that is very different to last year. Higher line, more expansive, more attacking. I think we've tried to do that a number of times this season. And it has been executed terribly. So whether that's he's signed the wrong players or he's gone too soon with, still doesn't quite have the players in depth and they haven't learned that style yet to be playing it well enough. The manager is making mistakes and absolutely should be criticized for that and should be ridiculed for it. And I don't think this notion that he can't be criticized until every player in the squad from top to bottom is one of his own. I completely disagree. I completely disagree with. So I think the criticism there is absolutely right. And you are correct. We used to be a team that was feared. We used to be a team that I don't want to go to Old Trafford. And we built a little bit of that back last season. We lost the opening game of the campaign there, and then we didn't lose again at Old Trafford until Brighton beat us again this season. And we started to build it up. But we are pacified too easy. And I remember winning the Carabao Cup and being happy. I remember talking about signings in the summer. I remember speaking about things that I think would improve us. But always caveated every time with, if we don't get rid of these owners and improve who runs our club, this will fall down. And I think too many Man United fans, like I said at the beginning, they go for this low-hanging fruit, which is if we sack this manager and go and get De Zerbi, Now, De Zerbi's name probably isn't as popular right now because he lost 3 of his last 4 games. But there is this notion of, if we sack him and go and get De Zerbi, watch us ball out, watch us kill it. Watch the forgotten footballers, the Van der Beeks and the Martials and the Sanchos kill it. Watch the Rashfords and the Brunos be ostracized and I'll be happy. I just don't believe all of that is going to... You might find Sancho starts to deliver with a new manager. You might find that Rashford don't play as much. But you won't get all those things you want. The club will still make decisions that damage the manager. They won't let him get in what he needs quick enough. There also isn't a director of football, like you say, who helps that manager. You can have the greatest coach in the world, but even the best managers ever, the Peps and the Fergies, they still buy duds. What we need is a recruitment team that sees eye to eye with our manager in terms of what they want. And there might be times where I said, you know what, Ten Hag, I think your player profile's fine, but we shouldn't be buying 1 midfielder, 1 striker, and a goalie. We need to be buying 3 attackers, or we need 3 minutes. Look at Liverpool have done this year. And again, they may not win the league just yet, but they just went out and went, you know what, we're spending our money on? We're just improving that midfield. Bang, 4 midfielders.
Brand new midfield.
Maybe that's what we should have done. And again, hindsight's lucrative, and we all can hold our hands up and say we've got things wrong. But the one thing that, even though some people said I was right about the manager, I was right about Rashford, or I was right about Sancho, again, for me, that's just... It's a small percentage of what's wrong with our club. The overarching element here is we still don't have a plan. We're hearing briefings today to the media that the board fully backed the manager. And as soon as you start hearing that, for me, that's the beginning of the end, unless the results start to change and change drastically. That they are already looking at potential sacking. And my biggest fear is that they will sack him. And do you know what? If we went to a De Zerbi, I'd go, do you know what? Stylistically, I think the way De Zerbi plays is what Ten Hag would like to try and achieve. So maybe it'd be fine because he'd be able to take this group of players and get something out of them. But I'd be worried that we'd go and break the bank for a Simeone, who, by the way, is a great manager, but is completely different from Ten Hag, which would mean starting the squad rebuild all over again.
But Terry, this is it. This is the thing. This is about a plan. The problem is, and look, I'm surprised Ten Hag's not worked. I liked him when he was at Ajax. I'll be honest, hold my hands up. I would have wanted him at Spurs before we got Conte. I would have wanted him at Spurs. But based off of what you saw at Ajax, right? And from my point of view, I think the difference here in hindsight is that at Ajax, you're developing the young players. You're not just going and spending 60, 70, 80, 90 million pound on players. You're developing players that come through a system that all play the same way. And I think what probably a lot of people thought, I thought this, if he had come to Tottenham, would have been, okay, he's just going to lift and shift that model to my club. Problem is, at a club like Man United, the overarching factor isn't about let's give somebody 4 or 5 years to go and build something and to create a philosophy and a strategy and a plan, right? There's no time afforded at Man United. Your fans demand that you get back to where you were. Your fans demand that you win things. And yes, he won the trophy last year, and he did well last year. For me, the disappointing thing is it isn't that he didn't do well last year. It's that he's not kicked on. Like, in the first year, you go, okay, cool. The football's not going to be brilliant from any manager because he's got to get his ideas across, new players, different philosophies. But now you've had your first summer, then you've had your second summer. You've got to hit the ground running. And that, for me, I was a supporter, so to speak, of Ten Hag. I was saying, I think he's done a good job at Man U. But you can't carry over from last year and start this year the way you have. And the big thing for me, Terry, it's not that Man U are losing games. It's not like, you're playing well and just not quite getting the rub of the green. And everyone can see, when this player comes back, they'll be fine. For me, it's the performances as well as anything. It's that, I was surprised when you came to Spurs. Surprised you started really well. And then it's like you switched off a light and it stopped. Wolves, Forest, these weren't, you won the game, but you didn't look convincing. And that, for me, is more of the worry, is that you've not kicked on. This isn't year one. I.e., look at Chelsea, right? Poch, this is year one. So, you can afford a slow start because it is year one. This is year two. Your manager right now should be where we are. I'm not saying we'll stay there, by the way. You know me, I'm pretty level-headed about all that, and we'll talk about it later. But you guys should be where we are. You should be where Brighton are. You should be where Arsenal and Liverpool are. But I don't know. I just don't know
But
what has
do
happened.
you know what I put it down to? Typically, rivals don't like this reason. They call it an excuse, but I think it exists. You can call it bottle. You can call it not being able to handle pressure, and I think that's what it is. Because there are other issues here as well. It's not all that. The other issues we've mentioned, maybe the recruitment hasn't quite been good enough. Certain player issues. You've got 2 or 3 people out of form. There's injuries that all factor into this situation, and I don't think any should be ignored. And I'm not putting the pressure element in isolation, but there is this situation of, right, well, you came third, you won a trophy. Now, I was a Man United fan that said this, and I expect it. I expect us to close that gap on City at the top.
Yeah, of course.
And I expect us to win another trophy or 2. That's more pressure, because last year when the campaign started, most rivals and most Man United fans were like, I don't even know if we can make the top 8. I don't expect us to win anything. We're awful. And this is not a dig at Tottenham, and we'll get on to you a bit later. Your start has been impeccable. But when people start saying, oh, wow, see, that's what happens when you hire a great manager, I'm like, listen, he's done brilliantly. But let's wait and see for the pressure to mount up before we start saying this is the greatest signing of a manager in 20 years. Look at De Zerbi. Look how well he's been doing. Started the season well. People start talking about a guarantee for Champions League. They're going to win trophies. This team is as good as can challenge for the title. They lose 3 and 4 games after that point. Now, again, that could be correlation and causation having nothing to do with each other. But I do believe the pressure and the expectation from the media, fans, and rivals, factored in with all the other elements, is a problem. And that, for me, is why we haven't kicked on. A change of style that hasn't gone down well, that I don't think's been drilled enough. We didn't strengthen, now with hindsight, in the right areas, as an example. Major injuries, around 13 first-team players have been out so far. And then you throw in the pressure to have to deliver. And that's why we've lost these last few games, because we're playing well, and then we concede a goal or something goes wrong in the game, and you just see and feel that pressure mount upon these individuals. Of, oh, my God, we could lose another game here if we're not careful. We really need to win, so that everything we're working on comes together, and they're not handling that pressure well in any shape or any form. And that's where I do look at the manager in the team and go, I understand the criticism, and I understand people talking about sacking them. My biggest concern, it isn't about, I said this about Ole, I said it about Jose. I feel like I've been saying this now for 7 or 8 years. I'm not adverse to sacking Ten Hag today if I believe that replacing him would make us a better football team, because all I care about is us becoming better at football and winning things. My fear is we're going to put all this energy into Ten Hag out, finding all the reasons to get rid of him, just to be back here in a year's time. I almost feel like it's frivolous and pointless to almost have the debate, although you have to do it. And that's just not me as a football person, me as a Man United fan, just listening to people say, sack him and we'll be okay. I pray they're right.
There's so many facets.
They're right.
Terry, the problem with most football fans, as you can see, first of all, most football fans are ridiculously biased, right? You know me, I've always said this. Most football fans are ridiculously biased and are afraid of context. Okay. My lot that work with me all the time will always mock me because I say consistency and context is everything in football. And it's what 95% of football fans fail to have, right? Now, it's the same thing. If we look at, you brought up De Zerbi there. Let's look at De Zerbi. If De Zerbi went into Man United, most of the United fans would think, oh, right, overnight, you guys are going to start playing like Brighton, right? You guys are going to start dominating games of football, having loads of the ball, scoring goals. The difference is, listen, De Zerbi's a top manager. Don't get me wrong. This is a top modern manager, right? This is a modern manager with these ideas of players inverting and pressure and overloads and all that kind of stuff. But De Zerbi was perfect for Brighton because literally that is what Potter did, but just not to this scale. So literally he's taken, like, Potter is De Zerbi light, if you will. Or as someone said to me the other day, he's like De Zerbi from Wish, right?
Bro, you're so right. This is Brighton are playing this football now because they have built up to this over the last 15 years.
That's my point. My point is he's taken over. No, it's cool. He's taken over what is a great setup for him. Now, there's nothing to say if he came to Man United that in a year's time you can't be doing that. But he's not going to drop into Man United and then in the space of 3 or 4 training sessions, you guys are playing with inverted fullbacks and everyone looks like Matoma and Pascal Gross. And, you know, that's not how it works. But this is the problem. a club like Brighton, yes, they're a smaller scale than Man United and the Liverpools and the Arsenals, etc., and the Cities, but they've got a plan. And if De Zerbi left tomorrow, the next manager that's going to go into Brighton is going to be someone, they don't have to be identical, Terry, but it's going to be someone with that same ethos. This is the football we want to play. This is the school of thought that we want throughout our team. But other clubs like Man U, we're the same. Bouncing around from your Jose's to your Nuno's to your Conte's. Now we've got one that plays the football we want to see. Cool. Well, when this manager goes, the next manager needs to be of the same ilk, and that's what you haven't got.
You know what's crazy about it is I said when you guys sacked Poch, if you'd have gone to a Ange or De Zerbi-esque manager then, you wouldn't have gone through this last 3 or 4 years. You would have remained.
I agree.
Because your team was playing that kind of football. And I still think you were buying players, by the way, that were more suited to this football than Conte's and Jose's. It was almost like this weird. That's why you had players that weren't the managers were unhappy about, because I don't want someone like that. It was you carried on buying for if you had a Poch or you had a Ange Postecoglou, but you didn't have the manager for it. And that's what Man United did all the time. We either buy the wrong players for the manager, or we let the manager buy who he wants, but get rid of him in 18 months, 2 years, and then bring somebody else in with a completely different ideology. There's no continuity. And this is what I mean by Man United fans not grasping this. You then throw the pressure that comes with playing with United. And Lee Bell here says it sounds like excuses. Now, look, a lot of people call clubs bottle jobs. If being bottle jobs exists, then pressure must exist. You can't be a bottle job if there's no pressure. I don't know if anyone understands what bottle means. It means, it's a Cockney rhyming slang. It means bottle and glass. It means your ass went, i.e. you shit yourself when the pressure got too much. So when you call someone a bottle job and in the same breath say, I don't think pressure's a real thing in football, you can't have that banter and not think pressure exists. It doesn't make sense. Yeah. So for me, it's just very much this case of the analysis that people have got is right. There's lots of individual analysis I see from people that's correct about the manager, about Rashford or about Bruno or whoever, Højlund, he's too raw, too young. You're right. But some people act like those individual issues, if we resolve that problem, we're fixed. It's nonsense. It's an absolute nonsense. It's, sometimes you can have pain in your leg, but it's an issue with your back. So you can have all the massage you want on your leg, all the stretching you want on your leg, but if you don't address the issue in the back, the pain in the leg is going to come back. And that's kind of where Man United are for me. This here says, do you guys think that Rashford and Bruno are starting to turn into how Ozil and Aubameyang were at Arsenal? Yes and no. I'm not going to compare it to Arsenal's situation. Rashford and Bruno, and especially Bruno, with how good he was in his first 2.5 years, are following the same pattern as every single player that has signed for our football club in the past decade. Some have signed and been awful. Some have signed, started well and faded. Nobody is consistently improved. And at the moment, we're raving about Højlund. And Højlund, first 2 games, I thought we didn't really get him into the game enough. And last night, I felt it was a little bit of a coming-of-age match. I don't think we'll get that from him every week yet at 20. But I looked at him and thought, the fans are going to love him. If we don't change the way we run as a club, in 2.5 years' time, how we're talking about Rashi, how we've been talking about Sancho, how we've been speaking about Pogba and Martial and all these others over the last decade, we're doing it about him. But we forget how good Maguire was in his first 18 months. He was good. There's this weird notion that he was dog poo from the day he started. He wasn't. He started off really well. He regressed. Lindelof started well, regressed. Bailly started off well, regressed. The amount of players you can go get. AWB's first year at the club, he weren't that great going forward, but he was so good defensively. He's only recently got that back. He went through 2 years where he couldn't defend anymore. This is a systemic problem at the football club, which I just don't think sacking one person or selling one individual solves. It doesn't mean you shouldn't get rid of Rashford or Bruno or the manager. It means don't hold your breath that's it, we're fixed. It might take more than that. This year says, lifelong United fan, everyone can catch blame. Ten Hag, players, coaches, backroom staff, board and owners, they are all at fault. My club died last night. I hear you, Tad. I said that on my opening stream. I did. I felt like I was at a funeral last night. That's how it felt at the end. I buried my auntie recently, and obviously that's real life sadness. But there was certain emotions I had last night that felt similar to someone dying. I was like, the kind of shock of it and the sadness and the shock at the same time. And I've had moments today. I was in the shower earlier. Sorry to be so graphic. And I had this little, we lost last night, didn't we, moment. And it's horrible. I'm in shock. It's crazy. Debbie here says, Cristiano Ronaldo asked Messi to tell Garnacho to get out of there before it's too late. Then Messi do a wellness check on the butcher. Thank you, Debbie. I appreciate that super chat a lot. I really, really do. Viewers, do us a big favor, please, and hit the like button. Please make sure you are subscribing to the Football Terrace as well. Moving on from Man United, because it's depressing for me. I'm not going to lie. It's horrible. It's come out today. A certain Mr. Jurgen Klopp. And there's been speculation that he wanted this. And in fact, I'm going to play the video for the audience in a few minutes. But he has essentially came out and demanded that he thinks the only fair way, essentially, to resolve this. We all know it was an absolute calamity from VAR at the weekend that robbed them of a rightful goal. The only fair way forward from this, according to Jurgen Klopp, is for a replay to happen, for the game to be done again. We're going to play the video now just to give it some context. So, because people keep saying, but you got to say what he said afterwards. I don't really understand why that's important, but we'll play it for the viewers so you all can all hear it. This is what he's had to say.
A manager of Liverpool, so much more as a football person. I think the outcome should be a replay. That's how it is. Probably will not happen.
So he does say probably won't happen, but he said the only real fair way to resolve this issue is a replay. So at least we've now had it from the horse's mouth. Liverpool and Klopp want a replay. I respect him, by the way, for saying it rather than leaving it kind of open-ended so people could say, no, that's not what we want. But he has asked or said the only fair way to resolve this is a replay. As a Spurs fan, what do you make of this claim that Liverpool Football Club want you to replay that game because of a mistake made by VAR?
Jesus, how long you've got? Look, let me answer this as a Spurs fan, then as a football fan. The answers are probably very similar. As a Spurs fan, I think it's ridiculous. I do think it's ridiculous. Look, how many bad decisions do we see year in, year out against all of our clubs? And what I've said, Terry, is if you had 20 football fans in here, right, from the Premier League, you represent Man U, I represent Spurs, we'll have the other 18 in here. And I said to everyone, right, everybody right now, write down 5 to 10 situations where you feel you've been harshly done by in the last 3 or 4 years. Everyone's going to go, oh, that one there and that one there and that one. Right. Everyone's going to have these decisions that didn't go well. Now, listen, let me just put this out straight away. First and foremost, it was a shocking decision. It should have been a goal. I think anyone that refutes that is completely ridiculous. It doesn't matter if you support Spurs or whoever. It was a goal, right? They got it wrong. It was a terrible decision, right? But the problem you've got is here. Klopp talked about in his own thing about setting a precedent. Oh, okay, what? If we replay this, then we'll have to replay them all. Terry, we're going to be in a position then where if you replay a game because a decision went against you, we're going to be replaying games all week. Because every time you watch, I don't know, Sky Sports News on a Monday, for example, where they have a whole hour with Dermot, what's his name? Dermot Gallagher, the ref.
Dermot Gallagher, yeah.
Right. A whole hour of them picking through terrible decisions, right? So what do? We go, okay, well, that one is bad enough that we do replay it. That one is bad enough that we don't replay it. I just don't know. I don't know what they think is different about this to other decisions that have gone against other clubs. Now, I did a video about this earlier, and it was literally, I'll be honest, I showed you, it was literally like, shut up, Jurgen Klopp. Shut up. You're not the only one. This happens to all of us all the time. Yes, we get angry. Yes, we moan. Yes, we vent. Yes, we cry and we whinge. And then about 24 hours later, it's kind of like, oh, right, it's gone. Liverpool had to be the one club, didn't it, that took it to that next level, to that, oh, we're doing this for everybody, not for Liverpool. We're doing this for everybody, Terry. It's for the good of football. Don't be disingenuous. This is for Liverpool, right? At the end of the day, let me ask you 2 questions, Terry. All right, I'd love to get your take on this, if that's all right. One, we have a replay. Cool. All right. Hypothetical world. They set a replay for tomorrow night. All right. Tottenham, Liverpool. What do? We start the game with 11 men versus 10. Do we play the game 11 men versus 10? Because that's the situation you were in when they scored that goal. They were down to 10 men. So do Tottenham play the whole game? Do we play an hour? Do we have 11 men versus their 10? Secondly, and this isn't about Spurs. This is, you know me, I'll talk about this if it's any club. Secondly, if Liverpool had gone on to win that game, if Liverpool had nicked a last-minute winner before we did and they'd won this game 2-1, are we hearing any conversation about having a replay? No. Terry, we're not, are we?
And you know, and that final point you make there is, for me, the so key. Firstly, yes, if you did do a replay, it should start from, it shouldn't be 90 minutes either. It should be from when that goal was, it should be back to whatever the score was when that goal went in, and you play from there potentially. Because again, you go back to 11v11, the red cards definitely are not going to happen again. It's unlikely. What you've said at the end there is key. Because they didn't win, they've complained about it. And listen, people, there's a comment that came through that said it's important to break this down. That it says like, but Sava, not many mistakes are as blatant as this. And I understand that.
Sure.
We haven't seen many like this. We've seen lines not drawn for Arsenal. We saw the goal line technology machine or tech not turned on in a game before. But at the same time, because this wasn't a technical issue. This wasn't a matter of fact per se. It was a human being who, we've heard the audio now, as horrendous as it sounds, he just thought the goal was given. And he therefore checked it and went, yeah, it's fine, check complete. He thought he was checking to make sure it was okay to give the goal.
Right.
So that is a human error within the process.
Sure.
My point is this. How do we know that even when subjective decisions are made, they're not making errors in the process? And I'll give you an example. Casemiro with his hands around Hughes' neck. Now, let's just stick with that's a red card and he deserved it. Let's ignore the fact that 3 seconds after the clip stops, they smile at each other and hug. Let's just ignore that bit. 5 seconds before that, a Palace player grabs that guy by the neck. So no one has highlighted to the VAR individuals, as far as we were aware, we haven't heard the audio, that they've seen that. So my point of view is this: Man United have grounds there to go, hang on, did you see that we had a player grab by the throat first? No. Well, if you haven't seen it, it's no different to the VAR not seeing that the goal was given as offside. They made a mistake. They didn't see something. Therefore, fine, keep our red card. But we want a replay because they should have also been down to 10 men in that game. And that's the can of worms that you open. The problem that you have isn't just because this decision was so outrageous. For me, there have been many outrage. Wolverhampton Wanderers, I heard the video replay. I did not understand their explanation for it not being a penalty. They basically said the defender jumped up in the air, Anana's missed the ball, but because neither got the ball, it's not a foul. So by that logic, if I go in for a slide tackle against you, but you miss the ball and I miss the ball, but then I clatter you, it's not a foul because neither of us were in possession of the ball. No, you get a foul for it. The point is subjective decisions are made that, in my opinion, make no sense either. So you can call for replays, but now Liverpool have set a precedent. Any game they now win, like their game against Wolves last year, so they drew that game, by the way, they should have gone out. Liverpool have now got to accept replays because they're stating that when a mistake is made by VAR that costs a team a man or a point or a victory, the only fair way to resolve it is with a replay. And I've got, do you know what? I will give Liverpool all the credit in the world if when they play Man United at Anfield this season, or any club at Anfield this season, if Man United get robbed or Spurs get robbed or Arsenal get robbed by a bad VAR decision, I will take back everything I've said and go, do you know what? Liverpool are the most honourable club in England. When Klopp comes out in his press conference and says, yeah, I've seen the replay, it was never a red card, or it was never a foul in the build-up to that goal. United should have won. Do you know what? We're going to replay the game. Then I'll turn around and go, fair play to you. But we know one thing, and this is not a dig at Liverpool, because I don't believe anybody would actually offer the replay. But you've now set a precedent for it. So, of course, you're the torchbearer now, and you're going to be held accountable for it.
Do you know what? I think when having this conversation, I think the fairest thing to do is remove the two clubs it happened to, right? Because have it as a talking point rather than who the two clubs were, right? This could be Team A and Team B. At the end of the day, right, it does set a dangerous precedent, right? At the end of the day, yeah, it was a goal. I don't think anyone can sit there and say it wasn't. But for me, there's been a lot of really bad decisions down the years. There's been many, many bad decisions. Red cards that should never have been given. Balls that were clearly over the line that weren't given. Penalties that were given that were never penalty. Listen, look, I know a lot of fans won't like this because, again, as I said earlier, people don't like logic, right? But when I see things like Tottenham Hotspur, someone in the chat said that's without VAR. That's not. There's loads of VAR. There's loads of decisions in the last few years that were terrible. But the problem is this, right? If Liverpool had had that goal given, which they should have, yeah, I acknowledge that, right? I was doing a watch along, Terry, and I literally sat there and I said, "Hang on, there's no way they're not giving this goal." Like, do you know what I mean? There's no way he is miles on. This is being given, right? So I just want to put that out there. I'm not salty. It's not because it's Spurs, but there is something as an action and a reaction, right? Every action has a reaction, the butterfly effect, so to speak, right?
Mm-hmm.
There is nothing to say that if that goal had been given, that Spurs couldn't still win that game. Yeah, is it more difficult? Of course it is.
Yeah.
Right? But there's nothing to say if that goal is given that Liverpool win. There's nothing to say that Liverpool draw. There's nothing to say that Liverpool lose. The problem you've got here is you've still got an hour of a game to go. Now, was it the wrong decision? Absolutely, it's the wrong decision. But what are we going to do? We're going to start putting these decisions into brackets where this decision is, we got it wrong, but it wasn't bad enough to say replay.
Bruv,
this one was bad enough to say replay. So who makes that decision?
And that's the right? point. A lot of people are saying here in the comments, but one's subjective and one isn't. But this is the problem. Then you'll get subjectivity within the objective decisions for replays.
This is it.
Does this meet the threshold, and who decides what that threshold is? So maybe it's this. Maybe if they come out today and say, if in future an offside goal that's incorrectly not given because the VAR thinks it's onside when it was given offside, if this happens again, there can be a replay. But what if the game is 11v11 and the team that had the goal disallowed loses 6-1? Would you like when Spurs beat Man United 6-1? If we'd have had a goal ruled out incorrectly for VAR, should there have been a replay, even though you battered us?
Right. So is the replay going to happen because there was only one goal in it? Right?
Exactly.
Would they have wanted a replay if it was 1-1? If they had won, right? So this is what we've got to say, right? If we could the hypothetical world of football, right, Terry? Let's make some rules. Me and you right now. We'll make some rules. Cool. If a decision like that is that blatant, right, and the goal should have been given, it then doesn't matter in my hypothetical rules whether that team win, loses, or draw. The game is played again. And this is my point. If Liverpool had gone on to win that game, yeah, would they be talking about a replay right now? No, they wouldn't. They'd be saying it's a bad decision. We move on. The problem is what no one talks about in any of this, right? What no one talks about in any of this, again, context here, Terry, right, is Liverpool didn't lose that game because of that goal. Liverpool lost that game because they couldn't keep their players on the pitch. Liverpool lost that game because they went down to 9 men. Now, sometimes in life, you just have to go, right, yeah. Now, 11v11, I had Liverpool as favourites. Liverpool are a top team. Liverpool, I thought, were excellent that first half an hour. But no one can sit there, hand on heart, and say, 11v11, we definitely lose. We definitely win. You definitely draw. No one knows that because it didn't happen. 11v11, much better chance for Liverpool.
I hold you right. And listen, as I said before, I think Liverpool, I said it on Saturday, I think they were robbed. I think it was a horrendous decision.
Sure.
They could have won the game if it went their way. There is no doubt about that whatsoever. And I stood with Liverpool.
Agreed.
I even don't mind them asking for a replay. I don't mind that to a degree. I understand it. but they've set the precedent now, and I expect to see Liverpool fans and I expect to see Liverpool Football Club doing this for all clubs, because their words are, it's not about Liverpool, it's about the integrity of football, the integrity of the game, and about all decisions being better. So I now need to see you do this regularly. And I'll give you an example. Brighton versus Man United should be replayed, because there is clear video evidence that Rashford's cross didn't cross the line. There is an angle that makes it look out, and there's an angle that makes it look in. But this isn't subjective. This can't be subjective, because it's did the ball go out or not? And therefore it was disallowed. That would have put the game back at 1-1. Who knows what would have happened from that point? Now, I'm going to use Man United examples because they're more clear in my mind. I want to see rivals that want to replay for this game. So, well, United Brighton should be replayed 110%. We saw goal stand in the World Cup where one angle looks out, one angle looks in. For me, you have to look at multiple angles. Turns out VAR only checked one angle, which for me tells you, well, how can you give a clear, objective decision if you haven't checked every angle? It doesn't even make sense. So again, I don't think there should be a replay for that game. But if you're calling it for one, you've got to call it for all of them. And the problem you then have is we'll never finish the fucking season.
No, that's it. That's it. So let me chuck another hypothetical at you. Okay, so Tottenham Liverpool's to be replayed, right? And they go, okay, Tottenham Liverpool, the game is being replayed a month from today because of the schedule of Liverpool, right?
Yeah.
Not Spurs. We're not in anything other than the league, right? So the game is to be replayed when Liverpool can fit it in. All right. What if at that stage Liverpool have got 5 or 6 injuries to Mo Salah, Virgil van Dijk, Alisson?
Yeah.
What if at that time Spurs? What if the replay happens after the transfer window and Tottenham by that point have gone and bought? I'm just going to make this up. Tottenham have gone and bought Zubamendi of Real Sociedad to bolster the midfield, and we've gone and bought Santiago Jimenez, who's now banging in goals up front. There's so many moving parts to just saying, just replay a game. So if we replay the game, are we saying then that in that replayed game, Curtis Jones can't play, right? Liverpool have to start the game with 10 men and Diogo Jota can't play? Are we cancelling the goals from... So the goal from Gakpo, that is now ruled off his record. The goal from... Who scored for Tottenham? The goal from Sonny, that's taken off his record. All the fans, do all the fans just get a refund? Who's paying? Who's paying for that?
Yeah. What the conversation should be about, and I've not heard many pundits talk about it on TV. It's so sad. This should be about full transparency at all times, because I don't think this is about an objective versus a subjective decision, because I don't trust the subjective decisions. How do we know this? The handball Arsenal got against Tottenham, in my personal opinion, barring the distance from goal, felt identical to the one that Garnacho had against the same player. One given, one not. That infuriates fans. How many times have we seen a player sent off for one thing and another guy get away with it?
Of course.
This is, if there's transparency, exactly. And if transparency is there and we hear the breakdown as to why this isn't a red and why this is, I believe that public transparency will lead to more consistency in decisions. If there's more, it's not about whether you agree with the decision. This is what I don't even think people realize this about themselves. I like to think hard about this. It's not about agreeing with the decision. It's about the consistency of it. If everyone who does what Curtis Jones did gets sent off, you get no one moan about it within reason, because everybody gets sent off for that. The problem you have is if Curtis Jones gets sent off, and in this weekend there's a worse version, they only get a yellow card, that is where the controversy comes out. And for me, if I'm working within VAR, they must, if fans remember this, someone whose job it is in their profession should know this offhand, should sit there and go, hang on a minute, that handball's just gone in, identical to United Spurs, identical to Brighton versus Villa, identical to Liverpool versus Man City, and we did not award it. Therefore, we do not award this. And that's almost, and then the debate is, unless you see something different in this. And if we could all hear that conversation, and you hear someone say, no, I do think this one is different because the hand comes up very, very late, and I feel like he's... If you hear them describe why it's different, at least then again, it's different. If they just go, no, I just think it's different. Why is it different? Just think it is. That's not good enough. And that, for me, is how you fix this problem, is by explaining it and creating, and this whole nonsense of get it done quickly. Fuck off. I don't care if it takes 5 minutes. You get it done right.
Can I be honest with you, Terry?
Go on, mate. Go on.
I've said the same thing from day one. I've never shifted my opinion on this. I don't want VAR in any way, shape, or form. Football is a very quick game with emotions, fans celebrating. I want to go back to the referee and the linesman, the assistant referee now. I want to go back to them reffing the game, them having the overall say, right? I'm all for technology. Goal line technology, superb over the goal line. Superb. You know why? It's an absolute. Did the ball cross the line of the goal or not? It's an absolute. How often do they go wrong? Right?
Once when the machine weren't turned on. That's it. Yeah.
Right. Once when the machine weren't turned on. All of this other stuff for me, because I've been an advocate of I hate VAR. I get loads of people going, oh, it's not VAR, it's the people that run it. But for me, you know what? I'm not saying this because it's my manager that said this, but Postecoglou came out, didn't he, and said, look, the problem you're going to have is no matter what technology you implement, you can't have 100% error-free. You're not going to have it because of the speed of football. For me, go back to the refs managing the game. Go back to the ref and the assistant referee managing the game. Because at the moment, what I saw from that calamity VAR decision, and it was awful. If I'm a Liverpool fan, I'm fuming. I'm not asking for a replay because we've had many ourselves, but I'm fuming. What it looked like to me was you got the referee who's running around on the pitch. He's trying to talk to them at the same time. He's trying to ref a game. Just let the refs ref the game. There's going to be decisions that are, oh, that was offside, or that wasn't. Well, now I feel like we've got more controversy than before.
There's a comment that says, so offside is not an absolute. Listen, Rasta, let me say this to you now.
I mean, thanks for calling me a muppet. I mean, lovely.
It isn't. So, yes, you're either on offside or you're off. You can't be a little bit offside or almost offside. You're either onside or you're offside, yes. But the reason that it's not an absolute, the goal line technology is a camera that's set in place that does not move, that is in a position where its view of the line isn't blocked, and it gives in split-second time a almost 100%, nothing's 100% in life, accurate digital picture as to whether the ball crossed the line or not. And there are sensors in the ball, there is the cameras. It is as close to 100% accurate as you can get, more closer than the human eye. The problem with offside is that we don't even have camera quality that's good enough, this is true, to exactly see when the ball leaves the foot. You know, whenever they freeze it, when the ball leaves the foot, the ball always looks like an oval because it's moving. So you are right that it's either on or it's offside. But depending upon the camera angle, depending upon the position of players, it can be very hard to determine exactly if it's on or it's off. The way they make onside, offside work with VAR is you have to bring in like Hawkeye technology that gives an almost 99.999% accurate digital picture within split seconds. And if you can do that, if you can develop the technology that does that, you have the camera set up so it can do that, then you keep it. But yeah, listen, I'm at a point, I loved VAR when it came in. I actually liked when it took longer. I didn't mind the game being broken up. I like the idea of the right decision being made. I don't like what it's become, a kind of rushed semi-version of what I always thought it would be. So I'm now an advocate for it going after somebody that defended it for many, many years. I was just someone that I had so many heartbreaking moments as a football fan. I don't care if it's 10 minutes for us to get that goal against Germany at the World Cup. I don't care if it took half an hour for the rightful goal that would have knocked Porto out of the Champions League in 2004 to have stood. And equally, people will think about the Drogba goal. I'd do anything to have that goal disallowed so we won 5 Premier Leagues on the bounce. I'd do anything for those moments. So, and your rivals will have their own, you probably wish that Mendy goal from distance went in against Man United all those years ago as an example. But
this is what I mean. Do you know what? I'll send this link to you. Someone sent me a link today. It's like the top 10 VAR worst decisions. And when you look at some of these decisions, you go, God, they should be aggrieved. For example, just one example, Everton, who are fighting a relegation battle, right? Do you remember, was it last year or the year before, where the ball bounced in the box and Rodri has controlled it there? Right. So it's decisions like that where you go, oh, well, they're absolutes. That's an absolute. Everyone saw it hit his arm, right? There was the situation with Balbuena. Well, Balbuena slipped as he cleared the ball, and they gave it as a red card because he fell over and hit the other bloke. And it's like, well, that's not a red card. So look, I'm not sitting here as a Spurs fan saying that the refs got it right. We all know they got it massively wrong. I'm not sitting here saying we didn't get the rub of the green that was disallowed. Of course we did. But I'm just sitting here saying Spurs fans had nothing to do with it, right? All of this Spurs are cheating. Spurs as a club didn't have anything to do with this. This was the officials. But I'm just not a fan of whether it's my club or not. My stance is I hate VAR. I don't want any replays because of something that's happened with VAR. I don't want any replays ever from a football game unless it is the usual way of replaying. The game's drawn, you go to a replay and it's a cup game. I just not a believer in it. I think it sets a very dangerous precedent. What do you do? Right, let me give you an example, Terry, right? It's the World Cup final. Right? It's the World Cup final. And that happens, right? What do you do? Replay the World Cup final a week later?
Mate, I hear you. I mean,
I don't know where you go. Where do you go?
Yeah, Nicholas here says exactly. Any examples you give are based on subjectivity. The problem is that you're saying that Rodri handball was subjective. No, everybody in the world knew that was 100% a handball.
It was there, wasn't it? It was like
even within subjectivity, they say, but we're only going to overrule it if it's a clear and obvious error. Go back to my transparency point. How do we know what a clear and obvious error is if we don't know what the ref and VAR between them have seen? We don't, and that's why we need. I don't. What is a clear and obvious error? Again, if it hits a hand and the referee says he didn't hit his hand at all, well, it's definitely a clear and obvious error because he didn't even see it. If he says, "Yeah, I saw it hit his hand, completely accidental, close proximity, I don't want to look," then I'm happy for them not to review it because it pretty much marries up with what we're seeing. This is the issue. You could probably also keep VAR and only keep it for massive decisions that have been missed. So, for instance, did you just see that player elbow someone in the face? No, I missed it. Well, let's go back and look at it as an example.
But that's what it was for, clear and obvious, right?
Exactly. The problem we have is that we don't know anymore what clear and obvious means.
Exactly.
We don't know what... And we would if we had transparency. And if we had transparency and we listened, I think 99.9% of the time people have that issue. Do you know what's really interesting? When I worked in the bank, we as staff complained a lot that's like we'd have people that want a loan. And something that used to confuse me as a member of staff, the worse your credit is, the higher your interest rate is on a loan. And I always used to argue a dumb thing. I was young. If you've got bad credit and you're less likely to pay it back than someone good credit, why would we charge them more interest? It makes it harder for them. And no one in the bank on this like ground level could explain it. Well, this is what we used to the customers.
Just the way it is.
That's the way it is, which infuriated people. So I went on a course, and I'm breaking this down to layman terms. But essentially, the way lending is done is it's risk assessed, and the more risky a person, the more it costs the bank to insure that loan. So it's more expensive for someone with bad credit to have a loan versus somebody with good credit. When I started, and I said, "Can I tell that to customers?" No. Like, let's just see if it works. Do you know we had a 90% decrease in complaints about the interest rates in my area when we started telling people the full truth. This is why the bank does this and this and this to protect itself against loans, because essentially what banks do is when you do a loan, they lend you money from somebody else's savings account. And what they do is they borrow against it. But to ensure that lending, and they put it all into these categories. Again, it's more complicated than I'm making it sound. But when we broke it down to a layman's term and explained it to a customer, they stopped complaining. They stopped complaining because they went, "Oh, that kind of makes sense, actually." And they walked away. And this is it. When you give transparency in life, you get less angry people. You know, like when the government doesn't want to spend money on what you think is important. I bet if they told us the actual truth, you know, if we don't give the money to them over there, this country will do this to us and it will cost us this much more in the long run. We probably all go, "Oh, that makes sense then." But they don't. They give us bullshit and lie to us and they make us angry.
We're at the stage now where I'll challenge anyone that thinks they know every rule of football anymore. Football used to be a very simple game where everyone knew the rules. Now we're at the stage where no one knows what is offside and what isn't anymore when we're drawing those lines. No one knows what is a deliberate handball versus an accidental handball and when should a penalty be given. And look, for me, all I'll say is this: should have been given, but equally, I don't think that is the reason why Liverpool didn't win. I still think even with 10 men, Liverpool could have done us. They could have. I don't know. But they're the ones that got their players sent off. And that's the reason they lost the game. Anyone saying, I'm seeing people, what I love about people is when they give absolutes, right? See, like T means more. If you just, T means more at 4:32 it said, Savage, I think he's calling me Savage. Salvage, liar, liar, liar. You have no idea what LFC would do. Yeah. Win, lose, or draw. Wasn't that my point? I think that was my point. That goal stood. No, not one of us. Terry, you, me, Klopp, Postecoglou, the Premier League, the King of England. No one knows what would happen if the game had carried on and it was 1-0 to Liverpool with that Diaz goal. Everyone can guess. We can surmise that it would have been 2-2 or 2-1 Liverpool or 3-0 Liverpool. We can guess, but no one can know for definite.
Mate, I think it's a great point. I remember when Lampard's goal didn't count against Germany. I remember a lot of people that don't like England going, Germany were better, they still would have beaten you. But football's about momentum. England could have gone on to win. We could have gone on to still lose. We have no way of knowing that. You are absolutely right. Some super chats here. First one says, is MS scored last minute winner versus... Who's MS?
If MS scored last minute versus
Mo Salah's. If Mo Salah scored a last minute winner versus Man United and it was offside and VAR allowed it, would Klopp whine then? It's against the enemy, so no. Again, I don't think you would ask for a replay in that circumstance, no. Cucurella against Spurs was the worst one I've seen. I mean, we all know, again, this is the point I would say about you've got to challenge everything. That's just my point. But this is a subjective decision. This is a great example. Mike Dean has said the reason he didn't refer it is because he didn't want to get the referee on the pitch in more trouble. So for me, that is corruption, not from a Liverpool Spurs are corrupt, but from a corruption within their own group of we're not going to give this penalty because the ref might get into trouble and get booed by the fans. So there you have it, a subjective example where the process wasn't followed, and Chelsea, they should have had a penalty. Most penalties are scored, they'd have won that game. So yeah, that's a great example.
Oh, just quickly, sorry, just before you go on to that, this is why if you just went back to the referees reffing the game, when the decision is wrong, everybody knows one thing, Terry. It was the ref's decision. There's no drawing lines. There's no conversations between this person, that person. It is the ref has made the call. So I don't know why I'm doing that. This is what refs do now. They're like DJs, aren't they? The ref has made the call. It's not been given. Everyone in the crowd is like, you don't know what you're doing and all the other harsher comments. But at least you knew where you stood and you'd watch Match of the Day. You'd get peed off, right? You go, that was definitely a goal. But now we've brought in this technology to still get loads of things wrong. It's ridiculous.
No, I hear you completely. That's why I liked it in the beginning, because I felt like we got a lot of decisions right that should. The biggest one for me, as he read, was the penalty against Brighton after the handball. Imagine that's when I looked at it and went, that's what VAR's for. Because that would have been a game that we drew where for days after the game, we'd have been talking about we should have had a penalty, we'd have won the game. But they came back. And that's also, you're absolutely right. I'm a Liverpool fan. Game's gone, move on. Question I have is what was the point? Sorry, what? Question? Sorry, I'm thick as two planks here.
No, move on. At what point?
Game's gone, move on. Question I have is at what point do we get these bad decisions out of the game? All clubs, cause apologies not enough. How we do it is by all clubs and all fans supporting each other's clubs when bad decisions happen. And we make an actual stance against it. So if Man United get a bad one this weekend, Liverpool Football Club have got to talk about it and go, this is disgusting. But it won't happen. When we benefit from decisions, we have to call it out. But it won't happen. So I'm telling you this now, there's almost zero we can do about it because football fans will not come together. Football clubs will not come together because it's win at all costs. That's the mantra that's out there.
What if that decision had been the other way and Liverpool had won? Right? Do you know the funny thing about it is this is how football fans are so reactive. That would now be banter. If for Liverpool fans, that would be banter. So when I've got Liverpool fans going, don't tell me you wouldn't want a replay if it was you. I don't think I've ever seen a game and gone, we must demand a replay. You see a game and go, we were robbed, sure. But you never turn around and go, we want a replay. It's madness. Absolutely madness.
I hear you, mate. I don't want to replay. This is a clever tactic by Klopp to put pressure on officials and PGMLO. All the great managers did it, Fergie included. And by the way, this is another thing they're doing. They just want more. This is why it's not about fixing football. They just want more decisions to go their way. And I respect that. Offside technology can be done with chips in the ball and sensors on the sides of the field. It will be better than VAR. Yeah, I agree. There must be a way. With the way technology is now, 100% you can do it. I'm an Arsenal fan, and I don't want replays because it was a human error. What we all should be screaming for is better VAR systems. I hear you. As a Gooner, I have felt the apology last season when VAR decisions robbed us of 6 points, which played a major part in the April meltdown. Things happen. Calling for a replay is stupid, is what's been said there. Before we are going to move on to Arsenal, speaking then, but in terms of Tottenham, your team in this game, I mean,
Yeah.
I thought you were very good in parts as you've been this season. It's been a fantastic start to your campaign. I know you're a big realist when it comes to Tottenham. But how good are you really, in your opinion? How good are Tottenham right now?
I don't know. I don't know. We're a good team. We're a good team that's had a good start to the season, but we're a team right at the infancy of a manager's tenure. You know, he's come in and completely changed the philosophy and style of play. To be honest, I'll be honest, I didn't think we were good against Liverpool at all. I didn't. Just quickly on that game, the reason why I didn't want the game to go down to 9 men, you know, when fans cheer because a team's gone down to 10 and down to 9 men, I look at it the other way, Terry. I look at it and go, when a team goes down to 10 or 9 men, I don't think enough people actually have the brain capacity to realise that it's more difficult, because that team just put every man behind the ball. So I see fans going, you couldn't score against 9 men. Well, against 9 men, they had 3 centre-halves, 2 fullbacks, 3 defensive midfielders, and it was literally, can we break them down? And unfortunately, Spurs aren't City. We're not at that level where you've got 4 or 5 different players that can prod and probe, and we've got Maddison that can prod and probe, right? But to get back to your question, I think we're a good team. I think we've got a chance of having a very good season, depending on what anybody's individual explanation of good season is. But you know me, I think Tottenham, we're going to struggle. And the reason we're going to struggle, we've got a good 11. We have got no depth at all. And the moment a couple of these injuries kick in, Spurs are going to be found wanting. So can we get, the big question for me, Terry, is can we get to the January transfer window unscathed? All right, if we get there unscathed, you add 2 or 3, get a bit of depth. At the moment, I see us being very good for the next 3-4 games. I don't know if you've seen our next 3 games. They look nice, should we say. I'm not saying we're going to win them all, but they look nice. Then I think as we get into December and we have to play 7 games in December, then you're going to see the Tottenham 11 stretched. That's where you're going to start to see injuries and suspensions. And I think Spurs will fall away. But if we can get back into Europe this year, it's been a good year. We've implemented a new style of play. Terry, you called it. I'm a realist about these things. I'm not one of these Spurs fans who's going to sit there and sing songs about Pochettino's dead and we've got Postecoglou instead, when half the fan base didn't even want Postecoglou. I'm not going to sit here and say we're in a title challenge after 7 games. Like, come on, 7 games. If there's 7 games to go and we're a point off the top, I'm talking about a title challenge. So, look, I keep my feet on the ground. It's been a good start. I would like to think that Saturday by 3 o'clock we'll be top of the league because we've got Luton. If you can't beat Luton, then you've got some worries. And then we've got Fulham at home, Palace away. So good start. Had our luck, rode our luck. But I just think a lot of people can't actually just give any credit, Terry, where it's due. Like you're going to get relegated because Harry Kane's gone. You can't score goals because Kane's gone. Well, we've not seen that, have we? We've not seen that. We're a better team, an all-round team.
We did a show, and I'm pretty sure you remember me saying to you, I think it'll be a better team without Kane. Not because Kane holds you back, but it galvanizes people sometimes. Yeah.
Listen, it does. I think the key thing was, for years, we were a team that played no sort of football, but had a world-class striker, like a truly world-class striker that dug us out of holes. And everyone would go, oh, Tottenham won today. Yeah, we were absolutely crap, but Harry Kane grabbed a goal out of nothing. Now we're not that. Now we're a cohesive team. Everyone seems happy at Spurs. Sonny's being played in the right position instead of on the left now. He's not what he was a few years ago in terms of beating a man and pace, but through on goal, he's clinical. So look, are we doing some good things? Yeah. But mate, you know me. Listen, I'm 40, Terry. I'm 40. If I sat here like all these kids going, title challenge, we're going to win the league. Come on. I've seen Tottenham top at the turn of the year. I've seen Tottenham in title races in January and fall away. So
this is it. I've already put my hands up and said, I think I was wrong about Postecoglou. He's done so much better than I thought. Listening to him talk, do you know what it is? I've got a lot of family that are Australian, and he reminds me a lot of uncles and great uncles of mine. And I like listening to the guy. I think the style of football looks brilliant. Mm-hmm. You guys you worry me on the pitch, and you're getting better and better. In terms of what will Tottenham do, it's how you handle pressure. And the example would be this weekend. You've got a chance to go top. You know that Arsenal and City play each other, which means one of the two, if not both, are dropping points.
Wait,
this is an opportunity.
Luton 2, Tottenham 0. Is that what you're saying?
But this is the thing. This is when I know that Spurs have. I've spoken about my club like this in the last decade. Man United's biggest issue in the last 10 years in the Premier League has been the amount of times, whether it's in a top 4 race or maybe the beginning embers of a title charge. Go, the team above us has just lost chance to get momentum. The pressure comes in. The amount of times, the Man United fans will tell you this, the amount of times we'd go and lose. Like, how have we just gone and lost to Crystal Palace at home with a chance to go 6 points clear in the top 4 race, or a chance to cement ourselves into a title race? Pressure.
I agree. I agree.
That's the one thing with Tottenham. I think you guys have come into the season. Football's great. Managers do lead to life. I think Kane leaving. I know your managers weaponized that privately, guys. I think you guys are going to be crap without him. Weaponized it. The big acid tests are not just going to be the games. It's going to be, let's say you do win your next 3, 4, 5 games and suddenly you're looking really good. Then you start getting the media talk you up about title challenge, and Jamie O'Hara has whacked in lyrical on TalkSport. When you start handling that pressure and winning, that's when I'll start to believe more and more and more that you can achieve something, i.e. trophies off the back of this. However, right now, shoo-in might be the wrong word, but I feel like top 4 Champions League football next year. I don't see many teams finishing above you as it stands right now in terms of that as an achievement. And it depends. I don't know if you're someone that considers Champions League football as an achievement or not. But
I mean, from where we were last year, getting Champions League football this year would be an achievement. Look, I see it in every chat I go into. I get used to this as a Spurs fan. I don't think a lot of people are used to having a sensible Spurs fan, right, that will be down to earth about it. Are Spurs going to win anything this year? I don't think so. But from where we were, from what Postecoglou picked up, I wouldn't have expected us to. I truly wouldn't have expected us to. We're not ready. Look, Tottenham have got a wafer-thin squad. Now, let me explain this, right? On paper, we've got a massive squad, Terry, right? On paper, we need to sell players. But as I said, we have got...
Yeah.
Oh, without a doubt. Right, let's put it this way. If Van de Ven or Romero get injured, right, Eric Dyer's back in your 11. Okay, at the moment, without any January reinforcements, right? If James Maddison gets injured, James Maddison is our everything. I don't care. I've been calling for this guy for years. James Maddison is everything. He's our key to unlock defenses. He's our creator, our set piece taker. He's one of our captains. What happens when James Maddison's injured? There's no one you can bring on like him. If Basuma goes, you're back to people like Højbjerg and Skip. Right, I could do this throughout the whole of the pitch, mate. Right, if Udogie gets injured, we're back to Ryan Sessegnon. If Pedro Porro gets injured, it's Emerson Royal. Right, if Sonny doesn't play, you've got Richarlison. So this is why, as I said, football fans can't see past that, Terry. And I should know. I've got a massive nose, right? Football fans can't see past the end of that. What's happening right now? Nice, good. But when people say to me, Sava, just get more on board with it and we're going to win the league. And I'm like, whoa, slow down, because I can predict this is happening. The moment you get a few injuries, Tottenham will struggle. Yeah, 7 games in December. Bearing in mind at the moment we're playing every 7 or 8 days. We'll be going to playing every 3 or 4 days with this 11. Then you're going to start to see the drop-off. And Terry, we've got the African Cup of Nations in January. 2 of our midfield 3 go to that, Sarr and Basuma. And at the same time, Sonny's going to be playing for South Korea in the Asian Cup. So I keep my feet on the ground.
Feet on the ground, yeah.
See how it goes.
I think that's very fair. You've had everyone's had injuries, but again, this is not a dig, and everyone always takes these things as a dig. I know that you won't. Compared to a number of teams, you've been quite blessed in terms of key players not getting injured so far this season.
At the moment, for sure, yeah.
Exactly. And that's why I think it's right to keep your feet on the ground. And I've said to a lot of Spurs fans, enjoy it and celebrate it. But you're also in a very privileged position where the media is not putting pressure on you. So why apply more to yourselves? Because we know that pressure matters. We know that we've had every single athlete who's worth his or her salt talk about handling pressure, the build up to it. How some people it inspires. You know, do I think Mo Salah, Greg Rutherford, Jess Ennis on Super Saturday at London 2012? Do I think that pressure and that adrenaline helped them? Yes. There are some people that crumble under that level of expectation. And all I'm saying is about Spurs, historically, you crumble more than you rise to the occasion. So as fans, use your brains. And I know everybody wants to be. Our clubs are an extension of us. They're almost like a fashion accessory in 2023. And if my club's doing well, I want to rep them massively because it makes me look. Some people actually think it makes them look better as people if they support a successful football club. Like, it's very weird. Like, I don't quite get it. Maybe be a young person's thing. It was very weird. Like, I told someone the other day, like, my brother supports like, and they laughed. I went, what are you laughing at? They went, oh, imagine supporting a team like that. I'm like, brother, it doesn't make anyone in my generation. No one thought any more or less of you based on what football team you supported. Maybe watching. Maybe it's different for you, man. Now, maybe for younger people, the football team you support is as important as your politics. I don't know. Again, as a kid, no one spoke about politics either. We didn't do any of that bullshit. We just had a laugh. But yeah, I just look at it and go, don't apply unnecessary pressure to yourselves because I think you guys would thrive more being dark horses, if that makes sense. But you know, the football looks great. The football looks absolute top quality from you guys at the moment. And every Spurs fan should be chuffed.
Do you know what? Listen, I'm enjoying what I'm seeing. Listen, I'll be honest, against Liverpool, listen, I'll be honest. I went on with Rance and Rance called it out. I thought it was right. He said Liverpool and Spurs are similar football teams, but Liverpool in the way they play, but Liverpool are just a couple of years ahead. And I couldn't disagree with him. Liverpool for me looked like more of the finished article. Liverpool's forward line compared to ours looked brilliant. Yeah. I thought they looked brilliant. The difference between Diaz and Salah versus Kulusevski and Richarlison was there to there, right? So I can acknowledge that. What I hate is, you know, when football fans go, like, you're going to ask me in a minute, I don't know, about Man City or Chelsea or something and winning leagues and stuff. And people go, oh, what does he know? He's a Spurs fan. Well, so the only people that are allowed to talk about winning trophies are fans of Man City. Like, do you know what I mean? It's like, I never understand
what's dumb about that logic is based on that logic. Unless you support in England, unless you're a Liverpool fan or Man United, like a Liverpool fan, don't talk to me as a Man United fan because none of you can have as much knowledge as me because my club is more successful than all of you. It don't make sense. It's dumb. It's absolutely dumb. I agree. It's just dead banter, really. Speaking of your local rivals, they lost last night, first defeat of the season. Yeah, I do feel like they're all going in on Arteta because he shouldn't have played Saka. Every time they haven't had a perfect result so far this season, there's been crazy amount of babies being thrown out with bathwater. I mean, I'm surprised social services have not been called yet. Do you understand? Do you understand the meltdown from Arsenal fans? Do you think they're right to put this much pressure on their team, or do you just think it was a bad night? They'll bounce back. Stay relaxed. Like, where do you stand on the kind of Arsenal this season? I know it's hard but I know you're a very good.
I know. I'll try and say something level-headed, and I'll still get called out for this. Look, for me, I'll be brutally honest. I'll say the same thing I said to you in the summer. I've said to Arsenal fans. For me, I don't think Arsenal bought well. I'll be truly honest. I don't feel that from the position Arsenal were in, for the amount of money they spent, I don't think that they've done enough to go and close a gap. But in the league, Arsenal have not lost a game of football yet. Are they playing well? I don't think they're playing anywhere near last season's level. I think that's fair to say. I think we can all acknowledge that no one's watching Arsenal now and going, oh, they're good. Last year, I watched Arsenal and went, oh, I'm jealous. Look at the way you're manoeuvring the ball. This year, it's not the same. But they have lost no games in the Premier League. And, all right, they lost last night to Lens. But I don't think Arsenal are... Every team loses games. Every team losing games. There was no way Liverpool were going to go unbeaten. I don't think Liverpool are this world-class outfit that can just have this right to beat everybody. Even Man City, who are a world-class outfit, they just lost to Wolves and Newcastle. Right, so look, I think Arsenal are a very, very good football team. I'm going to say it. I feel like they've almost become a bit predictable. I feel like they don't ever change it up enough because they've not made good enough signings in the squad. And what I mean by that is Man City last year, Man City can go through bad times and good times, mix it up, and then they can make 3 or 4 changes at the weekend, still win a game, completely change from a 3 at the back to a 4 back to 2 at the back, whatever they want to do. Arsenal, for me, very much have that guaranteed first 11. And then when I look at their depth, I don't see there's too much there. And I'm not being horrible. I see that if you finish second and you're in a title race and you finish second, the objective is only one thing. You talked earlier about Man United's objectives. You finish there, then your next aim is to close this down. There's only one place to go from second, and that is to try and win it. And for me, if you're going to go and spend 200 and, I don't know, Arsenal fans will tell me if I'm wrong, 220 million maybe that Arsenal spent in the window. For me, I think that was so badly allocated when you spent over 170 of that on Havertz and Rice, when what they should have been doing is buying 4 or 5 really good players at 40, 50 million to complement the squad and give themselves a lot of options. That's just me. I don't care because I don't support them, but I don't think they've done enough. And I actually think they've gone backwards from what they were in terms of their playing style. Sorry if I waffled a bit there, but I have to be careful when talking about Arsenal, because if I say anything too harsh, people go, oh my God, you're salty. I'm not. Arsenal just, look, Havertz, shocking signing, right? 65 million, right? Buying Raya or loaning Raya when you already had a number 1. I don't understand some of the moves that you've made. I don't get it, but I still think they're in for a good season.
You know what's interesting about it? Like the Havertz one, I get. I do understand that. It's interesting with Arsenal because I did a video this morning and spoke about how maybe one thing I've got. Again, we all get things right and wrong, and I talk about 6 clubs, so I'm always going to get lots of things about every club wrong. I get lots of things right as well, which is what it is.
No one ever tells you those things, though, do they?
No, not on the stuff that you get right. Not on the stuff that you know. Someone said to me today, "You've got to apologise to Lee Gunner." I said, "Oh, why?" He said he told you about Ten Hag and he's always right. I said, "Oh." He also said that Jurgen Klopp was absolutely finished and Liverpool were doomed if he stayed. And he said that Xavi will do nothing this season and will get sacked. I swear they're top of the league at the moment and got a new deal. So look, he's right about one of the 3. Like this happens. We all get things right. We all get things wrong. Like, it's not a dig. It is what it is, right? And who knows? By the end of the season, he could be right about all 3. He could be wrong about all 3. Exactly. This is what happens right now. Like the firepower isn't quite there at Arsenal consistently enough. Where last season they didn't have a problem scoring goals. I think that's partly to do with teams being more defensive against them. I also think there's an element of Arsenal, and I think this is more by design. You mentioned the style of football. I almost think they're holding back slightly. And although that's risky, you see people do this sometimes in Britain's Got Talent, especially if they're not singers. I can't do all my best jokes or my best act in the audition because I might have a semi-final and a final to come and I've got to keep getting better.
Right.
That logic works in football as well. I think Arsenal last season came out like a bull in a china shop. They maybe used too much energy up throughout the course of the season and faded towards the end. There is a train of thought, and Man United used to do this. Pep does it every year. There's a relatively, I know he's won a lot of games this season, but it's a relatively slow start in terms of their swashbuckling, powerful, relentless football. It's a slower start and they get better as the season goes on. I have a feeling, and I'm not saying it will come off, that's what Arsenal are trying to do. Almost, we can't play in 10th gear from the start of the season because we got to March last year and we had nothing left in our legs. You almost have to taper yourself down and say, we can't be relentless from the beginning. And I think that there's an element of that going on. So they do need to start scoring more goals. And at the moment, like Saka's numbers ain't been too bad this year. Trossard needs to add more goals to the games that he plays in. And obviously Martinelli coming back. And I think they can keep themselves within touching distance of the title race come January. I think they will go out of their way and sign a striker. I think someone like Ivan Toney would help transform what they've got. I do agree with you. The Kai Havertz, listen, I get them giving him the penalty and Arsenal fans got to hope that it works. But every time I watch him play at the minute, I just think he takes something away from their team. Listen, Bruno's been great for us over the years. But that's what I see when I watch Bruno play right now. I see a player that's more of a hindrance than he is an asset. And I think the manager's got to do something about that. And sometimes playing players through bad form doesn't help. It doesn't. And I think that Fabio Vieira has been much better than him this year and should be starting more games than him as an example. But I do still feel, though, that some Arsenal fans, like I said, maybe out with the bathwater. I get there's a desperation to win. They want to be the best and they want to be perfect. And maybe you see this across social. Sometimes there's a lot of over-analyzing based on 1 or 2 games. And it's almost a case of, like, I get what you're saying, but you're making absolute statements based on very little evidence. So there's a lot of people go, oh, you know, we're never going to see Partey and Rice playing midfield together. You don't know yet, because the first 2 games of the season you didn't, because of injuries and a lack of fitness in other areas. And then Partey's been out injured. If he's fit, both fit, and you never see them play together after 4, 5, 6 games, then you criticize it. But I don't get why you're angry about that when it hasn't been possible yet to really play them. Those are the elements where I just think you're applying unnecessary pressure and criticism to your team that they don't need. And I know some people think, well, pressure creates diamonds and all this stuff. I don't think it helps. I think there's an element of boo when you need to, be critical when you need to. But there comes a time where I just think you need to be a fan, be supportive, be patient. And sometimes I think saying less is saying more in terms of helping your team. And I just think Arsenal fans have got like first world problems at the moment. And I gave the example the other day. It's like me getting angry. Oh, I've had a terrible day today, Sav. I had to clean the leaves out my swimming pool. No one's going to give me any sympathy. That's how I feel about Arsenal. I just have no sympathy for them. I don't feel like they're in any kind of bad position, but they're talking.
Do you know the problem?
They're in 10 games. It's crazy.
The problem for me, I was speaking to one of my best mates who is an Arsenal fan. He's quite level-headed. And he said the problem for him is he feels that Arsenal fans now are so, and Arsenal as a club, are so far ahead of where they thought they'd be at this stage. It's unreal. And he doesn't mean now this season. It means they went 8th, 5th. Last year, hardly anyone was talking about them getting in the top 4, and then they're on a title challenge. And that has taken expectations from here to there in 12 months. Now, that's great. To do what they did last year was brilliant. They did really, really well in the league. To get to 5th, from 5th to 2nd, difficult to keep doing it. And that's the difference between when you're talking about pressure, when you're talking about winners, when we're talking about the best players, right? When we're talking about, oh, but like Pep only goes to the best clubs. The pressure at the top is to do it year in, year out. That's the pressure, right? This is the pressure of these players. Have Arsenal done enough for me to be better than last season? I don't think so. But again, it's 7 games in the league. It's 7 games gone.
That's exactly it. And I think that, as you say, when you're ahead of expectation or ahead of schedule, it can change the barometer of where you're at. And the weirdest thing is the people that seem to get most angry are also the same ones that don't believe they're good enough to do it anyway. And I'm almost like, that's why I don't get the anger. It's like, yeah, we're awful. And then they play badly and they're like, oh, why didn't we do better? But you said
Spurs the biggest example of that right now, Terry. Spurs are the biggest example. No one said after 7 games we'd be sitting here second, unbeaten, 1 point off City. And those fans at the beginning of the season, I'll call out Spurs fans. I don't, you know me, I'll call out whoever. Those Spurs fans that when I said, yeah, do you know what? I like Postecoglou. I think that's a good choice as manager. We need a project manager. We need a guy that's going to come in and implement something. But he's only done it in Scotland. He's only done it in Celtic.
No, mate.
Now we're second. Oh, we could go on a title chat. Whoa.
Yeah.
Where's this come from?
Do you know what it is? And men do this a lot more than women do it. All right. And I'll give you an example. Obviously, we have a lot of ladies that come on the terrace, and I have chats with a lot of them over the years. And I'm like, have you ever been an example where like a guy might message you a nice message and say like, oh, you were really good on the football terrace. Great. Have you ever messaged back a nice message and then the man just doesn't read the signals and thinks, oh my God, I'm in here. This is my new woman. And they're all like, yeah, all the time. I'm like, yeah, men are terrible at reading signals generally. And we're just as bad women as we are with football. You win 3 or 4 games, you're back to your best, you're firing, you're going to kill it. Equally the other way, you can lose 1 game. Like, I think Arsenal are going to have a very good season. They lose their first game in 10. And everyone goes, Cito, you're wrong to say they're good. What are you talking about? Like, if they go on to lose another 6 of the next 10 games, maybe I'll hold my hands up and go, maybe I was a bit premature with this. But they go and beat City this weekend. No one's going to remember this loss to Lons later on in the campaign. This super chat, though, is bang on, though. Look at this, Sav. the same Arsenal fans that were complaining about the manager rotating and experimenting at the start of the season are now complaining that he doesn't rotate enough. And this is the absolute key point. At the beginning of the season, when he wasn't starting
always.
Exactly. When he was rotating at the start of the season, wrong. It's like, why isn't he rotating now? But he's rotated prior to this run of games. Like, I saw this dumb thing today about Saka. I know, cool, I can hold my hands up and go, maybe he shouldn't have played yesterday. But this nonsense of he's appeared in 87 Premier League games on the bounce. Of course he's going to get injured. All talisman do. His last 3 years, I think he's averaged 48, 43, 46 games in totality each season. You go and look at any top team and look at their talismanic players, Sons, Henry's, Messi's, Ronaldo's, whatever. They're all playing that amount of games. Even at 20 years of age, 21 years of age, 22 years of age, they were all doing it. Equally, Saka has had his rest because he's barely played in the last 3 years. European football, did last year before, not one game. He barely plays in the domestic competitions. Whether you're in it or out of it, he barely plays. So that's when he's getting his rest. So there is rotation there. You're just not noticing it because he plays most Premier League games. And there's these weird fallacies that are being created that, again, are agenda-based. Doesn't mean some of the criticism isn't right. But this notion of 1 minute you don't want rotation, the next minute when there isn't as much rotation, you're angry about it. Well, make your fucking mind up. What do you want? It's true.
Yeah, look. I think, to your point at the beginning when you said about losing 1 game in 10 and how reactionary people are, have a look at Spurs haven't lost yet in the league. The first time we lose a league game, forget Spurs fans, the first time we lose a league game, watch how many fans go, oh, overrated. It's like, well, hang on. Well, no one gave us a chance of 7 unbeaten. Everyone said, wait till you've played United, Arsenal, Liverpool. Well, we played all them. Spurs, breaking news. Spurs are going to lose games. Breaking news. Yeah. Doesn't mean we're overrated. Doesn't mean we're underrated. Doesn't mean the wheels have fallen off. We're going to lose games. We've got a very thin squad and no one fancied us to be anywhere near where we are. But that's football fans. We're obsessed with knee-jerk reactions.
There's that, but there's also, I can guarantee this, if every opinion I have about every team in the Prem, barring, say, City, is negative. So if at the start of every season, in the last 7 years, I go, Spurs will achieve nothing this year. Arsenal ain't winning no league. United will fall short, definitely, of the Premier League. Nah, Chelsea ain't winning nothing this year. City probably going to win most things. That's not great insight. That's likely. If you're just negative about everybody barring one club, you're going to get loads of things right because every year, most teams fail to win something, especially with how good Man City are. And that's what a lot of people do as well. They just, you're crap. Sometimes they guess right and you end up being rubbish. Other times, not so much. There's a guy I follow that every year says Liverpool are going to be rubbish. And then last season, he went on this whole, I told you, you didn't. You guessed that every year. This was the 1 year where it happened.
Right. This is the worst thing for me, right? Football fans, I'll call a few people out as well. I don't mind. Football fans are very good at saying some amazingly outrageous things, then saying, I'm just backing my club. Just because you say something outrageous doesn't mean you're backing your club, right? Then when it doesn't happen, they go on the defensive. Look at every Arsenal fan. We're going to batter Spurs 3-0, 4-1, 5-1. If you come to our ground and play football, we're going to batter you. Then when we didn't get battered by them, it was, Spurs celebrating a draw. Hang on, it's not that we're celebrating a draw. You lot told us that if we come to you and play our football, you're going to batter us, right? Then you get the people like Egal, for example, who is so opinionated on his own club. I'll call him out. I don't mind. I watch people like Husam and Egal come on, and I'm the complete opposite, right? I'm the complete opposite to these fans. I always look at it and go, look, do you know what? Look, I said I thought that Spurs Arsenal would be 2-2, right? I did say Arsenal were favourites. I thought we could grab a draw. I look at, well, they can hurt us here. We can hurt them there. These fans just have no critical thinking. It is Spurs are crap. Spurs are crap. We're going to batter them. When I saw Spurs fans going on to shows to question them and go, okay, why are you going to batter us? It was, if you open up and play your football. Okay, but have you actually watched us play? Everyone went on like they'd seen Spurs play, Terry. They hadn't, clearly. Everyone went on as though we were Bielsa's Leeds, that we played 10 up front and no one at the back. Right? No one did. This is the thing. I love it. Stick up for your club. Sure. Get your clickbait in. Sure. But when push comes to shove, right? And you actually sit down with people and actually have a proper conversation and say, okay, cool. Do you know what? This game's going to be tough because of this, this, and that. I can get with it. But when you just get fans going, you're dead, you're crap. Saw Husam last week. I'm not worried about Spurs at all. Spurs are rubbish. We'll beat them easily. We'll dispatch them. All right. The game went awry after the 30th minute. But dude, you got your 2-man sent off. In the first half an hour against us, you were good, but we weathered the storm. You know what I mean? Like, I just feel that too many football fans are so reactionary. So reactionary that it is unreal. A player scores a goal. Oh my God, he should be winning the Ballon d'Or. Oh my God, he's the best player I've ever seen play. The player then misses a penalty. Oh God, this guy, he's a bottle job and he can't do that.
Do you know what? Do you know what does it though, Sav? Do you know what does it? Do you know what does it? And I know I go through these moments where, because you're making so many public opinions now, when things don't go your way for a while, we all have an ego and we're all arrogant to a certain degree. Some people's it's sky high, some people's it's lower, but there are times where the snob in you, the arrogance in you, the ego of you rises to the surface when something kind of goes your way. Or if you give that arrogance ahead of time, so i.e. in a prediction and it goes wrong, then the defense comes out. Listen, I'm not impervious to that. 100% put my hands up. Typically what I do is just go, yeah, bang, got that wrong. I'm sorry. It's very therapeutic. It's easier than digging your heels in and like doubling down on these things to go, yeah, I got that one wrong and I got this one right. Either way, you get bantered from the viewers. It is what it is. But yeah, I do find, again, with Spurs, if you guys lose to Luton, I'm not going to suddenly sit there and go, that's it. The progression doesn't exist. If you're 2-0 up against Luton and lose 3-2, I'll probably call you bottle jobs on that game and assess that football match and go, well, this is one of the reasons why I don't think yet you should be talking about title races. But it's very hard. Never. Even when I did my preview, Arsenal Spurs, I predicted them to win 3-1. And I had to go, you predicted 3-1, you're a loser. I'm like, yeah, I got the prediction wrong. But what did I say in the video? I thought Arsenal were the favourites. I thought Arsenal could exploit areas of you. But I also said I think Spurs will turn up. I say Spurs will give a good account of themselves. And I said Spurs could even win this because they're good enough to this season. So it was, for me, that's a balanced take. Although the score prediction was wrong. And this is the problem. So you can be like Egal, where it's easiest derby ever, or you can go close game. Arsenal are going to win 2-1, 3-1. If you're not right, the audience just come for you anyway. So it don't really matter. It's just, but you've been called a muppet on here today for saying nothing wrong.
Absolutely. Look, look, for me, I'll tell you what, I've just seen one comment that for me just sums up everything. There's a guy called Rampage Scratching who said, Savra's complaining about supporters supporting their team. I think that's, what I said about critical thinking? It's not about people sticking up for their team. I had some good conversations with Arsenal fans that went, you know what? This is going to be a tough game. You guys are playing well. I can see a 2-1 Arsenal win. I think maybe a 2-0. I was like, fair enough. Fair enough. It was the people coming in going, 5-1, 5-0. And you're like, where did you get that from? Like, I get it.
Hopium.
Right. But I get it. If they were battering teams, I get it. But they weren't playing well themselves. We played quite well. And listen, I'm all for it. Yeah, a bit of clickbait here and there is fun. But then when it doesn't work, just turn around and go, wow, you guys were better than we thought, right? Or, oh yeah, got completely wrong. What actually happened? You're right, Terry. The phrase you used there, it was the doubling down. But Rice went off injured. But Martinelli was, hang on, you knew Martinelli was injured before the game. You knew Partey was injured before the game. Can't start using these players that were injured before the game. Yeah. Like, yeah. I just think people need to just relax a tiny little bit. Biased fans are great. I get it. But honestly, I've always said, Terry, I truly believe, and I like to consider myself quite level-headed with football, as you know, right? I'm pretty sure that whenever I speak into this thing, right? Whenever I speak into this thing, I'm pretty sure that what goes in there and then comes out the other side when people watch it is something completely different. I'm sure. Like, I'm so sure.
Mate, we know that happens. Somebody has left a comment in here. I've got to find it now. I didn't star it. Sorry. This shows you people don't listen.
Yeah.
You've listened to what I've said about Ten Hag today. Terry, stop defending Ten Hag. You need to be sacked. Again, but this is what happens. If you turn around and say, I think I understand, but I don't think sacking him improves the club. that's considered by some as defending Ten Hag. Because all they really want to hear is Ten Hag crap, sack him now. It's, basic stuff. Were Spurs not 7 unbeaten last year as well?
Yeah,
they were, but they are playing better football this year, so you can't assess those two situations the same, in my opinion.
But hence why I've said don't get carried away.
Exactly.
7 games in.
This says never forgets when Klopp said to Ryan Mason, focus on other things. When Jota kicked Skip in the head, Mason's career ended due to a severe head injury. Fair part. I didn't know he did that. Havertz signing was bad. Going for a title, you're signing someone who's already made, who can make you want to sign someone who can make an instant impact rather than someone who's behind in their development. Yeah, that makes sense. Don't worry, Terry. At least you're not Lee Gunner right now. Well, what's wrong with Lee Gunner right now? I'm sure he's fine. His team lost. He's happy. It's a joke. Anyone who gets triggered by that, it's a joke. Although I know you can be arrested now for telling jokes. You can be arrested for telling jokes now. So
yeah, I'm in a WhatsApp group with Lee, and last night I'm in a WhatsApp group with Lee and Saeed. Right. So this WhatsApp group last night was, I don't know who was down more, Saeed or Lee, about their team's performance. So interesting times.
Yeah, I hear you. Look, Sav, absolute pleasure to talk football with you, mate. Always is. Man. Viewers, just to let you know, we are live tonight for the Man City Newcastle Champions League games. We'll be reviewing them later this evening. Sav will be back again same time next week with us here Wednesdays on, I think he said top 6. It's Straight Facts, this show. It's called Straight Facts. So he'll be here with us then. Until next time, everybody, look after yourselves. Take care. Goodbye. God bless. And we'll see you all again soon.